This one begins lesson number 3, and lesson number 3 is going to talk about the slope of lines. Now, one thing to remember about slope, it is something you see every day in the world around you. Can you think of something that has a slope to it? Okay, a hillside, yes, a mountain. How about a roof of a house? It has a slope. Some are steep, some are a lot flatter, but they usually have some kind of a slope to them. There's lots and lots of things out there that have slope. In businesses, we want to know what our slope is. Why? Because the slope tells you how fast your business is growing. If your business is making very slow progress, then you aren't making very much money each month. But if you have a bigger slope, in other words, it's steeper, your business is going to be making more money. So there's a lot of applications to real life of what a slope is, okay? So a slope is a slant to a line. And how do we calculate a slope? Well, first of all, as we look at a slope of a line, it comes from the connection of two ordered pairs. I have the ordered pair 0, 0, and up here I have an ordered pair 2, 2. Okay, so there's my line. Definitely a slanted line. It's not flat and it's not vertical. It is a slanted line. So this ordered pair down here, whatever it is, we can call one ordered pair X, Y, and the second ordered pair is also X, Y. But to determine one from the other, since this is my first ordered pair, I'm going to call it X sub 1, Y sub 1, and X sub 2, Y sub 2, because the 1 indicates it's in the first ordered pair, the 2 indicates it's in the second ordered pair, and then the slope of my line is always indicated by the letter M. So the letter M is equal to, my vertical is first, so our Y's are first. Y sub 2 minus Y sub 1 over X sub 2 minus X sub 1. In other words, vertical movement, then horizontal movement. Very important, because when we go to use this in graphing, which will be the next assignment after this one, you will actually use this, okay? So, if we were to use this ordered pair then to find the slope of this line, this is going to be my X sub 1, Y sub 1, my X sub 2, Y sub 2. And notice, I write it down because it's easier to remember. So the slope of my line is going to be equal to my Y value minus my Y value here over my X value minus my X value here. And this is 2 minus 0 is 2. 2 minus 0 is 2, which is equal to 1. And on writing slope for this form, you will reduce your fractions. Be careful of your positive and negative signs, and be sure to reduce the fractions. If you do not reduce your fraction, you will not get full credit. So that's really, really important. Okay, so now let's look at another ordered pair. Set of ordered pairs. Let's go 5, -2. Okay, there's another set of ordered pairs. Now, this one is going to be X sub 1, Y sub 1, X sub 2, Y sub 2. Notice I've got some negative signs here. And to prevent losing those negative signs, I am going to actually put my formula down with parentheses to slip the numbers into, so I don't lose my negative signs. Okay? So my Y sub 2 is a -2. My Y sub 1 is a -6. Notice that -6 isn't dropped off because I have a minus sign here. That's why I put my parentheses, so I would not drop it off. Now my X sub 2 is a +5. My Y X sub 1 is a -3. And again, notice that -3 isn't I don't lose this negative because of that negative 3. I still have to have both of those. Now as I simplify, this is going to be a negative 2 minus a negative 6 becomes plus 6. 5 minus a negative 3 becomes plus 3. So negative 2 plus 6 is a positive 4. 5 plus 3 is a positive 8, reducing down to 1/2. So this slope is a 1/2. Let's do another one. Okay, what do you see here? I see my x value is the same thing, right? Which one of those special equations had the x value as the same number? Yeah, you're right. It was x equals that same number. If x is equal to the same number, what kind of a line is going to be formed with that? Yeah, it'll be a vertical line. So look what happens when we actually calculate the slope here. We end up with, this is x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, negative 4 minus 2 over 0 minus 0. Negative 4 minus 2 gives me a negative 6. 0 minus 0 is still 0. Do you guys remember way back when we did rational equations? What was our problem when we had a 0 in the denominator? Yeah, it was undefined. Therefore, this is an undefined slope. Undefined slopes build vertical lines, which is an important thing to know. Undefined slopes build vertical lines. So you have to, when you finish and you end up like this, you have to state that it is undefined or you will not have full credit on the problem. Okay, now let's look at another special case. Again, notice my y value is the same. And remember from the last lesson, if the y value is the same, it builds that special equation of y equals whatever that number is that is the same. But now let's calculate the slope. I forgot to write the word line up here. And again, if this helps keep you straight, it's worth it. Whenever I have negatives in my ordered pairs, I always put in the parentheses. Negative 1 minus negative 1, negative 2 minus 4. What's going to happen here? Negative 1 minus a negative 1 becomes plus 1. Negative 2 minus 4. This becomes negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 2 minus 4 is a negative 6. Since I have 0 on top, this means I have 0 of whatever that is. Therefore, this is equal to 0. Okay? So 0 slopes of 0 build horizontal lines. Okay. Our next thing we're going to look at is what do slopes indicate about lines that are parallel and lines that are perpendicular, okay? So if I were to draw two lines on this graph, and if I can get them drawn well, they look like railroad tracks, okay? Slopes of parallel lines are exactly the same. So if I say y equals, let's go 2x plus 0. This one up here has to have exactly the same slope, because this is your slope position in your equation. So this leads us to our last assignment, but we're not going to do it. Mx plus b. This is the slope in a y equals mx plus b equation. So if I have an equation in the y equals slope intercept form equation, the value of this is my slope. So in this equation, m is equal to 2, okay? And both of them have exactly the same slope. So if I say y equals 2/3 x plus 4, what is the slope of that equation? Yes, m equals 2/3. Not the x, only the 2/3, because this is the only part of this equation that expresses the slope. Not the x, but the m, the part that replaces the m. Only the 2/3, okay? If I am given an equation, 2x minus 5x equals 4, and I have to find the slope of that equation, the first thing I'm going to have to do is I will actually have to solve, whoops, I forgot and wrote the wrong letter, 2x minus 5y. I'm going to solve for the y, which means I'm going to subtract the 2x from both sides. That's going to leave me with a negative 5y equals negative 2x plus 4. And notice, I keep it in the format that is there. Now divide by that negative 5, and you have to divide everything by that negative 5, making a 1 there. So y is equal to 2/5, because a negative divided by a negative is positive. 2/5 x minus 4/5. My slope is right here. So m is equal to 2/5. So I can calculate the slope from a standard form equation and get to what I need to find the slope of that equation. Now, one more thing you need to know. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. So over there, parallel lines have the same slope. Okay? Now, if I were to draw a line that was perpendicular to this one, this line's slope is the opposite reciprocal of those two lines. So, if I have an equation, y equals 2/3 x minus 2, a parallel line would have the same slope. Two-thirds. But a perpendicular line, which is at 90 degrees to that line, perpendicular line will be the opposite reciprocal. Which makes sense. These two lines are positive because they're going uphill. This line is negative because it's going downhill. So the opposite of 2/3 is going to be negative. The reciprocal flips the number. So this is 2/3, so this has to be 3/2. Opposite reciprocal. Very important. Parallel lines have the same slope. Perpendicular lines have opposite reciprocal slopes. Okay, that's the end of your slope lecture, and now you're ready for the slope worksheet.